Universal Multi-Importer is an add-on specifically designed to help you import stuff in Blender. Usually, you want to go to File, Import, and choose one format. But now, you can just use Universal Multi-Importer, pick any file format compatible with Blender, and click Import All. Each file format will have a different import settings, so you will have a prompt for you to set up them correctly based on your need. So the first one, the second one, etc., etc. And finally the import will happen. That's it. Everything is imported. You can now settle and check the log to see if there is any errors. You can scroll with Ctrl Scroll Mouse and click on Escape to exit. For whatever reason, SVG file don't come to the right scale. I don't know why yet, but I bet it's related to the SVG importer itself. I would also like to mention that this add-on is only using the importer available in Blender. It's not coming with its own import script. There is one point I wanted to address with this importer. When you are trying to import files with legacy importers, Blender will be non-responsive during the import sequence. So I exported a 22 million polygons character from ZBrush to showcase that. It took 44.62 seconds to import, and during that time, I was unable to see what's going on. Now let's retry the same files with this add-on. Default settings are pretty optimized, but for this example, I want to change them for you to see the worst case. I'm going to explain each settings later in this video, so don't worry. Now the viewport stays interactive, as you can see. Each file will be imported one after the other, but the viewport will refresh after each import, which allows you to pan, navigate, zoom during the process. It took 165.39 seconds. I know, it's pretty bad compared to the legacy importer. So why do we have such a big difference? And the answer is in the viewport refresh itself, because each refresh takes a fixed amount of time and the model have a lot of parts and a lot of small ones, just a few kilobytes. These small files are really fast to import, right? But it's gonna need a little bit of extra time to refresh the viewport each time. So the more small file you have to import, the more you will have to refresh the viewport, and the bigger the impact will be on the total import time. So to improve that, we will group together the small files to skip the viewport refresh between each files, and we will import the bigger one after the other. Now let's play a bit with the import settings. I'm gonna skip that one for now. The first one represents the maximum number of files that can be imported simultaneously. And the second one, the maximum size that can be included in a single batch. So with these two settings, we can ensure that the batch will not include more than 50 files and that the total weight of each batch will not exceed 15 megabytes. Let's see how it looks. The first batch is 19 megabytes, which is above 15, so it will be alone on this batch. And the next one are smaller, so you will see that more files will be included in the batch and that the number of files will vary based on their sizes. The process is now done with 68.9 seconds with only 38 batches, which is better, but it can be improved even more with the last settings that we haven't seen yet. As you can see, this batch is 4 megabytes, which is still far from 15 megabytes. What happened is that each file that cannot be included in the current batch will be sent to the next one. And file 423 is already 15 megabytes, so it has been sent to the next batch, which left batch 31 almost empty. Let's retry, but let's keep the minimize batch number button on now. This feature will create batches more smartly, packing together big files and small files to be as close as possible as max batch size that we've set up in the settings. You will see that the biggest file will be imported first, and that the file included in the batch will be smaller and smaller the closer we will be to the end. As soon as the size will be below the threshold that we set up in the settings, the batch will include smaller files just to reach that limit. "67.61 seconds for 33 batches. At the end, you will see that the files bigger than 15 megabytes will be alone on their batches, that the files below 15 will include smaller files to complete them, and maybe a few batches at the end will not have enough big file to reach the 15 megabyte limit. So basically, the more small file you have, the more files you will need to include in each batch to help the importer fill each batch. Let's now have a look at other import settings that are more self-explanatory. In your post-process error is related to the batch process that we will see in the next section. So if you have any error during this process, they will be in your, and the process will continue. You have an option to save the file at the end of the import, just for safety. You can also import each file in its own collection, which could be used as a quote-unquote resume function. Let's imagine you have stopped the import of a big batch and you want to resume it. If you enable this option, it will check the name of the collection in the scene and skip the file if you found a collection that already exists with the same name. You can also back up the file after X megabyte imported, because if you have a really big set of files to import, Blender can start to be a bit slow or unstable after a while, so at least you won't lose your progress. Before talking about the command batcher, I wanted to give a bit of context. If you import files from another DCC, or if you have many files in your scene, you may want to process them all at once. And that's exactly why the command batcher will become handy. In this example, the data are HD files coming from ZBrush, and I would like to continue sculpting them in Blender. So I've made myself an operator, which is not included in this add-on, which allows me to rebuild the subdivision surface of the selected object until the lowest possible. And I also have another operator to change the subdivision level without going to the modifier tab. And now with the command batcher, you can input a list of Python commands that will be executed for each selected object. It will then rebuild all subdivision levels, switch back to the highest subdiv, repeat the process for the next objects until the last one. All these objects now have fully recovered their subdivision levels and can be sculpted normally. Before explaining how it works in detail, I would like to give a little warning here. The system is pretty dumb, if I can say. It will just take the inputted Python command and execute it. For example, if you input a command that quit Blender, Blender will just quit and your work will be lost. Or let's say if you decide to subdivide a mesh 1 million times, Blender may crash eventually. I think you know that. So I would recommend to try the command on 1 or 2 meshes just to see if it works as intended before running a full batch. Let's jump in. So to execute the command batcher, you need to be in object mode and reach the object menu. The top section is a list of commands that will be executed on the objects. Here I have one command for the rebuild subdiv and a second one for switching to the highest level. Please have a look at how the commands are formatted. It's just a command with a parameter in parentheses. Nothing else. No for loop, no if statement. Usually you can input anything that starts by bpi.ops. You can edit a command by clicking on the pen. I can add stuff here and click on OK to approve. I can move up and down with the arrows. I can add a new one with the plus icon, which will be added at the end. I can duplicate an existing one. I can remove one command with the cross and remove everything with a trash bin. Everything should be straightforward at this stage. And don't forget, everything you put on the top part will be executed on the selected objects. And the bottom part is a preset section. I already have a preset here, and if I click on the up arrow, it will be loaded on the top section. And everything will be ready for execution. You can rename a preset with the pencil icon, duplicate a preset, remove it, move up and down, etc. It's the same feature as in the top section. What you have to keep in mind here is that the save button will take everything that's in the top section and override the preset under your mouse. The plus icon will take everything that's in the top section and save it as a new preset. You also have to know that nothing prevents you to add multiple presets in the top section like that. Let's finally put the importer and the command batcher together. We're gonna import everything with the optimized settings, but then we will add our operators in the list. And you will see that the importer is going to import a full batch, then the command batcher will process them. Then the importer is gonna take over and import another batch, and the command batcher will process them again. It's indeed interesting not to wait at the end to process everything. It's better to do the process after each imported batch. In this example, having 22 million real polygons will cost more in terms of memory. Blend file will be bigger and Blender will become slower and less stable. On the other hand, having the same amount of polygons with subdivision modifier on all objects will be way faster and way more responsive. The file will stay lower and Blender will stay stable longer. It's all about stability. At the end, importing stuff that way allows me just to import more data, caring less about my PC freezing or realize that coming back to my desk that Blender crashed. Everything explained in this video will vary based on your hardware performances, mostly your RAM size, CPU and hard drive speed, and you may get a different experience than what I've showcased here. So feel free to try different settings to find the one that works best for your hardware. That's it for this video. I hope you liked it and that it will become handy to you too. Feel free to share any comments, feedback or feature requests if you want. Have a good day and happy importing!